Entering the water to assist a fellow paddler involves a degree of risk to the rescuer. In this chapter, we're going to explore the methods that are effective, but keep that risk to a minimum.
Remember that our options for rescuing are structured in order of increasing risk through shouting, reaching, rowing or paddling, and going. Here we will look at going. In particular, we look at how to set up a tethered swimmer or live bait rescue, and our options for stabilising and extricating our friends when they're stuck in the river. But first, we'll examine the different approaches for wading. Entering the water, or going, is a last resort, but if we have to wade in the flow, here are some guidelines. Here we can see a single paddler wading into the flow using a paddle for stability on their upstream side. The wader faces into the flow and supports their weight on the paddle while they ensure that their footing is as safe as possible. This could be used to attach a line to a pinned boat, for example. In the line formation, the team can support each other. The front member can use a paddle for support, and by breaking the flow creates an eddy that makes it slightly easier for those behind to stand and walk. They hold the buoyancy aid at the shoulders of the person in front of them. This helps the team support the trailblazer at the front. This method can be very effective even in fast flowing water. The wedge or V formation allows the wading team to stay more compact. Still using the creation of an eddy behind the front person, the two others in the group hold on to each other side by side. This makes the group a very cohesive unit. A good example of why you might choose to wade in this manner is to recover or assist an injured paddler who cannot walk in such an environment. With all the wading methods, the speed and the depth of the water will determine the limit of what can be achieved. Obviously, the faster it flows, the sooner people are likely to lose their footing. Also, once the water reaches body height, natural buoyancy, along with PFDs, will tend to make people float. Therefore, we should only use these approaches where there is a safe area to swim downstream.
Attaching a tether to another paddler is straightforward. Approaching from behind, make sure you locate the right spot on their harness, clip in, lock the carabiner, and they're secure. If you're flexible enough, it's possible to attach your own tether. But obviously that attaching was done out of sight, so it's really important to check that you've not inadvertently clipped webbing and the system's running free. You can see here, this upright webbing has been accidentally clipped. When we run the test, the paddler realises really soon that it's inadvertently clipped. Some paddlers prefer to leave the ring permanently attached. This is really useful, but it has introduced a slight snagging hazard. But as long as we use a round ring, that will generally stay folded flat. To attach to that, we just lift the ring, clip the carabiner on, lock the gate, and we know everything's in a secure position. You can also use the ring to self-clip. Straightforward, some reassurance from the noise is good, but I would always recommend you self-test. This system here has a cow's tail permanently attached. By pulling the carabiner out at the side, the paddler can clip into the bag, and he knows that the attachment point at the rear of the buoyancy aid is in the correct position.
It's a good idea before ever using a chest harness for the first time to check that your harness runs free under the quick release. It is essential to have confidence in the release of the chest harness system before attaching yourself to it in a real moving water situation. Here the swimmer is on a tether in the flow. By reaching over and opening the quick release buckle, we allow the flow of water to pull the swimmer from the system, and the swimmer is then free to swim to shore. Live bait rescues can be used to retrieve people from the river. We have an anchored belayer controlling the line that's attached to the tethered swimmer. Another person is on hand downstream to assist as required. The unresponsive swimmer washes down the rapid. The tethered swimmer enters the water and recovers the casualty by getting a grip of the PFD shoulder straps. The person on hand to assist in this instance offers a paddle as a reaching aid and helps the pair in the water to the bank. Now let's go back over that and revisit what everyone did. The belayer is securely anchored and has the ropes passed around their back. When the loads come on, they can feed the line out to reduce the drag on the rescuer. The tethered swimmer or live bait is securely attached to the line, which they control by having some coils of rope spare in their hands, as much as they think they'll need for the task in hand. The last thing that they want is to enter the water and find that they're on too short a rope and have wasted their efforts. Any other rescuer needs to assist or coordinate as required. In this instance, the shape of the eddy and the direction of the flow meant that the tethered swimmer was swung back in, so the presence of a reaching aid was helpful.
Now that we've dealt with options for entering the river, in the next section we can look at how we decide whether or not entering the river to help your friends is absolutely necessary.
Sometimes, when we're paddling, we end up in the middle of the river. That might be in a boat, or like me, completely out of a boat. But no matter what, we're going to give you lots of ideas about how to deal with that.
Assisting your friends that are stuck in the river falls into three categories. Those who are reasonably safe, but will need some assistance to get back to the bank. Then those who are in difficulty, but not immediate danger. And finally, those who are in immediate danger. For those who are reasonably safe, like me on this rock, you can take your time to find the solution that is least risky for the rescuer. Next, we can look at situations where paddlers are in difficulty but not immediate danger. For example, a paddler stuck in a stopper or a hole. If the paddler is close enough, you could simply throw a line to the paddler and pull the paddler to the end and then clear of the stopper. Sometimes a paddler on a stopper or a broached or pinned boat or even a foot entrapment have a little time between them simply being in difficulty and actually being in immediate danger. If time and the situation allows, then a stabilising line is placed across the river and walked to the trapped paddler so they can use this line to support themselves. This stabilises the situation and usually allows the trapped paddler to extricate themselves. Another option for placing a line across the river is to paddle it over. To do this, it is best to feed the line through the broach loop of the boat, under the paddler's arm, and up to where they can grip it in their teeth. It is important that the person controlling the line on the bank keeps it high to avoid it dragging in the river. The person receiving the line on the far bank takes the line from behind the broach loop, allowing the paddler to exit the system. Whether we are helping a broached or pinned paddler or entrapped swimmers, the concept for the stabilising line is the same: to offer support, buy time, and extricate the individual in difficulty. Although using a stabilising line keeps the risk to rescuers to a minimum, it can take too long to set up or may not be practical on larger rivers. If we now look at the situations where paddlers are in immediate danger, such as a pinned or broached boat or a swimmer whose legs are trapped on an underwater obstruction, this usually requires an urgent response. If possible, rescuers are going to have to enter the water using wading techniques in order to stabilise and, if possible, extricate the trapped paddler. It is important when you extricate a trapped swimmer or paddler that you pull them back out in the opposite direction that they went in. Remember though, your responsibilities are, in this order, to yourself, your team, the swimmer, and only then, equipment recovery. Dealing with trapped paddlers is frightening. At these moments of high stress, you will become very reliant on previous training. Being able to make these judgment calls quickly and accurately takes practice. Time spent rehearsing these responses is invaluable.